We've been talking a lot about intelligence and insights in India. Our next session is going to focus on international fashion and lifestyle brands and their retailers and the experience that they've had in taking that intelligence into retail spaces around the world. And I'm going to kick off with a man who has been described not just as a fashion maverick, but as a fashion fashionista, a trader who's created a brand over 25 years, simply out of a love of fashion. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome on stage Raza Beg, Director, Landmark Group, and CEO of Splash and Iconic from Dubai.
I was given a very easy topic to talk about my 25 years journey in 15 minutes. So I've not created any presentations because I thought that it'd come from the heart. I had read recently that entrepreneurs are born out of hardship. I think so the person who wrote it was talking about me. So my childhood has been a very stressful situation as I was growing up. And to meet ends, I had to do every kind of odd jobs, and which created the trader in me. So my journey in retail started exactly 25 years ago. In fact, today, 13th of March, is when I traveled to the Middle East and to look after the store as a store manager. And that store was Splash. And I had, over the years as a young child, worked with a lot of my own personal customers, so I realized the importance of what customer is. So when I entered the business of retail, I had no idea what retail is all about. I had no clue of what buying is and merchandising is. I did apply for a job as a fashion buyer, but I got hired as a store manager. So when I joined the retail, I used those traits of a trader to just look after what my customer needs are. It all was about service to initially start with, and slowly and steadily I realized that it is all about the consumer's journey. So all through my 25 years, the one thing which I have done constantly is adapted and stayed with my consumer. Their needs, their details, whatever they needed in the business of fashion, that was my attention. As a trader, the first thing, about in 2 months of my working with Splash, I was given the responsibility of going and buying. And I was given 3 briefs, very small, short, sweet briefs, that I need to ensure that the fashion I buy is current, it's great quality, and it has to serve the consumer's need, which we are going to address. The brief was very simple. I took that money, went into first time into Hong Kong markets and Thailand markets and Korea and Indonesia. At that time, we were working with about 7 to 10 brands, which had very clearly defined quality standards and a product which was mainly essentials. To ensure that we get fashion, we had to walk into markets and address that. And probably I was a good buyer, so we did attract the consumer into the business and devoted from their wallets. It was a very interesting journey. We had a great run, and we opened our stores really quickly because we were seeing that the consumer was reacting to what we were buying. But it was inconsistent. It had a nice environment. It was a product which was fashionable. It had a value which was unmatched, and the customer was coming into our store. So it was a great, great run. And we could have run that way because the competition 25 years ago in the Middle East was exactly that. In fact, we had no competition. The competition the people who we looked up to were 2 brands, was JCPenney from the US and was BHS from UK. These were the 2 top brands, and then everything else. So it was a great run, and we were growing really fast. Then came the mother of all malls in the Middle East was Dera City Centre, which had suddenly bought in brands from the UK High Street and the Spanish brands and a few Spanish brands, but it was mainly the UK High Street brands. So when you looked at Debenhams and you looked at Next and you looked at Topshop, you realize that, listen, there's a different thought. There's a strategy that they are working on product development. There's a science they're working on. There's a season they're working on. As a trader, I just went out into the market and just bought whatever I felt was looking good and put it irrespective of season. And whenever it came in, we put it into the stores. That's true 25 years ago, and customers were really, really forgiving. Today, it's a different story, though. So as a buyer, that is where the real thinking came in. We had to plan because we were very clear that if we are not going to change and think like buyers, the chances are our customers will be sitting in their stores. So it was almost, we preempted the intention, we preempted what the consumer is going to be in the next 2-3 years and started to work like a buyer. This is the same time when we opened Lifestyle India. And even though I had a designation as a fashion buyer when I started off, it had no meaning. We were truly traders. But the definition of what a true buyer is and the thinking process actually came in after 3-4 years of trading. That part was probably my most, I put my best effort where my mind was concerned because it was a thinking process. We had to do a lot of consumer segmentation, consumer understanding, merchandising, budgeting. Most importantly, we had to think like buyers and we had to think seasons. So that was an amazing phase of my life, and I thoroughly enjoyed that part of it because it was just not going and buying and selling, but it was about thinking. I really felt that this is the time where I am really adding value and changing a path in the region. When the Spanish brands came into the Middle East, they really caught my attention. As a consumer, I suddenly felt, wow, this is really great. I had reasonably priced fashion merchandise, and it was very, very far-fetched because our product was more, at that time, more essential-based and basic-based rather than fashion, because we used to be working at that time in 1998, 1999 with a lot of Indian brands, from the Color Pluses to Arrows to Provogues, and then we were working with brands in the Far East, from the Bussinis and G2000s, in Indonesian brands. So we had a very nice multi-branded offering, which the customer had. There was a certain promise which all brands make, which is quality. So the customer had product which was relevant to the market, but it did not have fashion. What was missing was that so when you start comparing with the Spanish brands, you said, oh, they are really fashionable. And for the first 2 years, I really did not understand it or did not feel that, I felt that is another path. But exactly what happened as a buyer, I felt it is very important that we need to again revisit our business and probably this time think as designers. That journey, the design journey, the creative journey was the longest because that whole process was completely new to me. I did not know how to create. Sourcing was not a part of our business. We were just buying and selling, buying intelligently, but it was not about creation. Creation was not in our DNA. So I think starting from 2000 to 2006, that tenure was completely changing the format on its head. That means we were very successful with our brands, which we retail very successfully, but it needed a lot more than just the brands. So the design phase is where we had to suddenly now not talk seasons, but we had to talk drops. We had to talk collections. We have to be true to trends. We had to be so. Again, that was another very interesting phase in my life where there was a lot of travel, basically to capture trends. So traveling to trade shows, traveling to fashion shows. the glamorous events became a part of it. That's where that part of my journey was really, really interesting. And training myself and training the current buyers in the company and hiring the right talent in design. It's only, I think so, in 2006, where almost 80% of Splash was in-house built. It was designed in-house, and we had successful transactions with the consumer. At that time is when actually the brand building process started. Prior to that, it was all very tactical brand building. Because we were so confident that we have a collection which is made by us, and at that time, almost 80% of the labels were private labels within the business. And by 2008, I decided to switch, and from private label, actually put the brand Splash on the label. And we had our first fashion party, and we had a small runway at that evening, and we decided to showcase what we are doing. And I had some very high-profile friends and people from the media, and they were completely surprised to believe that this is Splash. They didn't believe me. They said, Raza, is that true? And I said, every piece which you see over here is Splash. That gave us a great confidence, believing that, yes, we have a product which the opinion makers like. And from there, the journey, as I said, the brand building exercise started. The creative aspect of what Splash is and what Splash stands for needed to be told to the consumer. It was a story which we had to tell. We had to say that we are no more the trading which you saw in 1993, where we used to just buy and sell for markets. This is something which, and that with that, we had an extremely, extremely good run. We had some very, very successful fashion shows. Our 10th fashion show actually had 20,000 people between two shows. It was called the Splash Fashion Paradise with 150 models, 80-meter runway, and we went all out. At the same time, just when in this phase when I thought, wow, we have now understood the formula, the buzzword fast fashion started to come in, and it became like everybody was talking 21-day delivery, 30-day delivery, 45-day delivery. Each one was trying to beat themselves, and we said, okay, this is another journey. So in my 25 years, there was a constant every 5-6 years, a great high and then a low. And then every time we felt that the consumer is going to move, we had to change our DNA. We had to redo and revisit our entire process. When the process of fast fashion started to come in, we actually were a little baffled. We did not know how to go about it, because when what we did was monthly drops as a designer, and here you are talking about weekly drops, some things which, where you had to constantly churn new merchandise. Our logistics had to change, our merchandising, our budgeting had to change. The entire process had to go for a revisit, because you had to start bringing fast fashion. Of course, fast fashion is only about 15 to 18% of our business. Other business as usual, but only 2 minutes? Okay. Anyway, so, and to conclude, because I have only 2 minutes left, my path in the last 25 years has been very, very, there's been no abbreviations, there's no adjectives. It's all about simple, pure love for the business of fashion. What we did constantly is watched our customer very carefully, and every time we felt the consumer is going to move or will move if we do not action it, we brought that into place. And I think so the reason the business has stayed with the consumers has stayed with the brand is because we have constantly adapted. I know there are many aspirational people who want to have their own business and start off. This process is built over the last 25 years on purely consumer and the love for the business of fashion. I know there are 2-3 other things to say, but I think so I'm going to. The last time I was over here, I spoke for twice the time, so this time I decided I'll be on time. I wanted to touch upon my personal failures and some winning formulas which I've had, but unfortunately, with no time, I'm not going to do that. I'll leave it for another day. But to summarize, My wins were, of course, the brand Splash, which we created from nothing to almost close to 6,000 crores. We built a brand called Iconic. We built the brand Lifestyle in India, which came out of all the research we did in India. These were some amazing wins. The failures were, there was a brand called Cirositoria, which we bought in UK, and we failed in that miserably. The reason we failed is because probably we did not understand the customer. We just thought we are great at product development, we are great at bringing value, and we'll do that. But that was a lesson which was learned, and probably we built from there what Landmark is today. And there was another brand called Kinyobi, which I had launched in my brand about 8-9 years ago, or 10 years ago. It was Japanese inspired, it was free. It had a very, very different customer profile from what the Splash consumer was. It was a little too early. If I had done that same, if I have to revisit that today, probably I'm just in time for that collection. So I've had, in my 25 years, these are the 5 probably highlights which I can talk about, but I've had many more failures. So it's not about only winning, but I think so the journey of falling and revisiting and relooking is all our business of fashion. The changing times are just now where the youth are completely a different mold. They are not the same which we had about 20 years ago or 25 years ago. They are people who are very conscious of the sustainable fashion. They are very conscious of tech fashion. They are very, very conscious of value, everyday value. They are very, very conscious of experience. So I think so it's time, after 25 years, which is my birthday today, I think so I have to start revisiting my actions. Thank you very much. I have, my next season's campaigns are just going to be launched, and I'm using this platform to actually launch my India campaign and my Middle East campaign. Enjoy. 1 minute.
An embroidered twist on a high-low dress. Essential makeup, no stress. Put 'em wedges on that you can rock. Make 'em heads turn with your walk. Line मारने वालों को बोलो don't cross the line. ज़रा side में हट जाओ because it's my time to shine. Can you take a picture?